Hey everybody, Greg Harrelson here with Century 21, the Harrelson Group, and of course my co-host Abe Safa, also with Century 21, the Harrelson Group. We are, excited to bring, some more information to you and do another episode of Myrtle Beach Real Estate TV. Abe, I know that you took a little bit of time off last week, so we didn't have a segment. Well, I hope you had a good vacation and welcome back.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was great, but ready to get back to work.
Yeah, well, with the way the market's been, we all need a little bit of vacation. We've got to escape and turn it off for a couple minutes so we can really be strong and clear-minded for sure.
No question.
Well, we've got a lot of to talk about, and before we get into the numbers, as usual, there's a few things that I think that we want to share. And why don't you start off and let's talk about a report that was recently come out about the just overall real estate market across the country, because it's pretty interesting. And I'm not surprised, but it's always good to see, reporting agencies, to see their numbers, to see if what we're seeing in the local market is translating nationally.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Case-Shiller Home Price Index report, which is a pretty popular report to look at as far as home prices, showed a 12% gain in home prices in February on an annualized basis. So if you look at numbers going back 12 months in February, 12% increase in home prices across the board nationally. So that's 9 straight months of home prices going up according to that report. Now, the 12% number is pretty interesting because they reference it back to that's the highest recorded increase in home price over a year since February of 2006.
Wow. So in 2006, we were really at the height. We were booming. It was interesting. In 2006, the market was so good. People thought this is going to last forever. Like, this is unbelievable. Kind of like what we're dealing with right now, but that's impressive. So 2006, that's 15 years ago.
Yeah. And that was close. I don't know exactly what month we peaked back during that bubble, but it's got to be close to that February of 2006. That had to be towards the top. So 12% increase in home prices over the last 12 months is pretty impressive. Yeah,
well, I can tell you this for sure. It was August of 2006 that we started noticing the numbers, the trend actually had started shifting a little bit. So but the important part of that is that when I say we started seeing the trend kind of like shifting a little bit, then that means that there was a few months prior that things were starting to happen, and then it's like, okay, now it's noticeable. So it could have been February. Who knows? Yeah. But I just know that I can remember in August of 2006 is when we started saying, uh-oh, these numbers are a little bit different. And for those of you that are listening, that's what's so important about these reports that Abe and I are doing is we're looking at data, not trying to make predictions, but we're looking at data and making sure that we're the first to know what's really going on. Like, as things get better, we want to be the first to know things are getting better. If things are starting to slow down a little bit, we want to be the first to know. And then we want to communicate the good and the bad and the neutral to our audience. We're not going to be biased and more happy on a good market versus a down market. We're kind of like just wanted to make sure that we're providing good data, accurate data to you. And then you all make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. So that's great. 12%.
And by no means, we talked about peaking in 2006. By no means are we saying that we've peaked right now. We're not saying that whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because we're not. That's not what we're saying. Matter of fact, I see no signs of any reversal, but I don't like it when I say that, right? Because that seems to be like, oh wow, it's going to go forever. It won't go forever, but there's just nothing happening right here at the moment that tells me, uh-oh, we may be getting ready to shift.
Right.
I don't see anything right now.
Yeah. So the next one is mortgage rates. Obviously, they've kind of been, fluctuating up and down. So last week they dipped again below 3%. So that between the low interest rates going below 3 again, and then also the low inventory right now, it's creating that perfect storm for sellers right now, Greg. So amazing time to be a seller right now.
Yeah. And I saw some reports that that there was some decreases in mortgage starts and things like that. the interest rates go up, and then all of a sudden there's a little bit less demand because people are knocked out of qualifying. Interest rates go down, picks up demand, and it kind of gets bounces, a little bit like that. But to be under 2%, under 3% is a phenomenal place to be. What about what's the latest on forbearance? Because I wanted to share some thoughts on some forbearance, at least the process of selling when in forbearance. But have you seen any updates on the numbers of forbearance lately?
Yeah, I mean, it has dropped again this past week. It's just under 2.25 million right now. So 2.25 million number of homes right now in forbearance. So that number continues to drop week after week, which gives us some comfort, right?
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. I mean, I want to see that, people are owning properties, and I want to see that they're paying their payment, they're able to afford their payments, that they're paying their payments. The banks are, getting what they were promised to get. I want to see every bit of that.
Yeah. So let me throw one thing out there as well, Greg. Right now, there's about 1.4 million homes on the market nationally.
Okay.
Right? That's a really low number. Somewhere in that ballpark. It could be 1.25, 1.4 million, 2.25 million homes of forbearance. If every one of those homes hit the market right now, we would still be in a seller's market. So just looking at that, because I mean, right now we're in extreme seller's market. I think on average nationally, maybe a month's supply of inventory, maybe a month and a half supply of inventory. So even if all these homes hit the market all at one time, we would still be in a seller's market. So, I know a lot, and the reason I said that, a lot of agents out there and a lot of forecasters are talking about, once this forbearance things opens up and people actually are able to foreclose, or banks are able to foreclose on people, that the market's going to crash. And,
I don't see a crash. Listen, it would be okay. It would be healthy for maybe the market not to be so hot.
Right.
But the conversation on crashing, that's above my pay grade, because I just, on a local level, I don't see any reason why the market should crash. Now, in 6 months from now, we'll be looking at different sets of data, and I may say something different. But as of right now, I just see no indication. And like you said, if we doubled in inventory overnight in Myrtle Beach, we would still be a seller's market. That inventory would be so fast.
Yeah.
That just because it's not that you would be, if two listings came on in a building where there's only one listing on, then that just means that one of our buyers that's on our waiting list gets to buy. It doesn't mean that one of those sellers are going to sell and one of those sellers are not going to sell. No, they're both going to sell. It's just actually provides a little bit of inventory for the buyer that's sitting on the sideline. This is not an exaggeration. We have buyers on a waiting list. We have those buyers. That's how the market is. What I was going to say with forbearance is this, Abe, because so I was talking with one of the agents in the office, and we were having a closing, and representing the seller did not tell us they were in forbearance. Quite frankly, didn't think to ask if they were in forbearance. That's not a common question. Well, I list the property. Oh, by the way, are you in forbearance? It's kind of like saying, by the way, are you having problems with paying your mortgage? It's a delicate question, but maybe it is a question we're going to have to start asking. But we didn't ask, they didn't tell, and it did not come up. But when there's a closing, there's a title search done, and it's a title search done on the property. Okay, and they're searching to make sure that the buyer can get clear title. Well, it didn't show up until the end of the closing when the title search was done that there's a forbearance, that these people were in forbearance. And that didn't happen until a few days prior to the closing date. Now, the key is that, and I'm getting more information on this. I'm going to be talking to the attorney about this to really understand it. So we'll probably have more information next week. But the payoff for the forbearance, so everything that all the payments that were deferred, all that's got to be made up now at the closing. Okay, that was not a surprise to my seller. They kind of knew that was going to happen. But it's not the same as just like getting a payoff from a mortgage. Like the mortgage company had their payoff. Mm-hmm. The forbearance amount that amount, there's a payoff, but that payoff doesn't go to the mortgage company. It goes somewhere else. So it goes to some entity that is set up for these forbearance situations. And there's a letter that they have to actually, there's a document and documentation that has to be filled out and submitted in order for that payoff to occur. And that takes, right now, we're quoted by the attorney, that's going to take about 6 days. So this came up, let's say today, and the closing was supposed to be Friday, 2 days from today. Well, that closing's not going to be able to happen because it's going to take 6 business days to get that paperwork done and get it complete, assuming that there's not a backlog. And so now what we've got is a buyer and a seller that are having to agree to some sort of an extension. In our scenario, thank goodness, the moving truck is not sitting here waiting with all their furniture in it, because the seller's going to not be able to move. It's not going to be able to close. The buyer's not going to be able to move in. So it's just an adjustment. It's a thing. If anybody's in forbearance and you're thinking about selling, then please let your real estate agent know, because there's some things that we can do to get ahead to make sure that we can still meet the deadline. So it's just letting people know that.
So it's not as simple as your payoff balance changes. It's not
no.
It's all through a process. You got to go through a different.
Yeah, there is a process, and we shouldn't be afraid of the process. It's just we got to learn the process. Like, it's all stuff that we can handle.
Right.
But if we know ahead of time, we can get ahead of it, because the reality is that the buyer could determine to walk away from that seller right now, and that whole transaction could fall through. We've got a buyer that wants the property and a seller that wants to sell. So it's going to continue to go through. But, you got to be careful, because now the seller is in basically they're not able to fulfill their contract obligations.
Right. Well, numbers. Yeah. Luckily,
tell us the numbers, because I know what they're going to look like.
Yeah, here's the numbers, man. I did this. I didn't look at these last week, and then I look at them again this week. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost 72% of all homes right now are under contract, which is insane. Every time I look at that number, I've looked at it 4 or 5 times today. I just still can't believe it.
Yeah, you're double checking your numbers, right?
Yeah, I'm checking the math and make sure I didn't screw up anything. It's like almost 72% of every single home on the market right now is under contract. Resale, almost 70% there. So 2 weeks ago we were at 66.5%. So now we're close to 70. So again, inventory just getting tighter and tighter. And then with that low interest rate, again, it's a perfect time to be a seller. So there's a couple of first-time home buyer programs that they're considering, federal government right now. I'm sure you've heard about them.
Yeah.
So that's just going to really add fuel to the fire if that does happen. It's going to increase the buyer demand out there.
Yeah, and part of the motivation, and I surely don't know what the government's how they make their decisions, but I do know that prices have increased so much that first-time home buyers are kind of getting priced out of the market. Like, a first-time home buyers, usually they have limitations on what they can qualify, and prices are now going up where there's no inventory for what they actually qualify for. So when they start creating they'll probably do a first-time home buyer credit. Mm-hmm. And so when they do a credit, 10,000, 12, 15,000, whatever that number is, then that'll just allow these buyers that are like kind of borderline qualifying, that now are can't qualify, that little bit of money will bring them back into the market.
Right. Yeah, and we for a while the low interest rates were making homes more affordable for people, so you can afford more of a home. But the prices are going so fast; it's that tug of war between prices and low interest rate right now. Yeah. New construction homes, almost 74%, 73.57% of all the homes out there under contract, an extremely strong number. The condo market is really starting to pique my interest. I mean, look at that number on the condo market.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about this for a couple of months now. Will the shortage of homes lead to all of a sudden a rush towards the condo market? And that's starting to happen. So we're starting to see some appreciation in the condo market, which we haven't seen here in a very, very long time, especially condos. Not so much on the ocean. Those are still kind of trailing behind. But anything on a golf course right now, anything that's off the ocean, we're seeing some really good appreciation. If you've got a condo in Barefoot Landing, there's only 3 condos for sale in all of Barefoot Resort right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing prices, Ironwood, every one of those developments up there, we're starting to see appreciation. And if you've got a condo in there and you kind of been waiting for the right time, this could be a good time. But I thought this was a pretty impressive number to see.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I think not only is it the lack of inventory on the residential side trickle over to condos, but I think there's a lot of people that are starting to think, again, I remember back in 2005 and 6 where people are starting to say, with real estate going up the way it is, then, maybe we need to invest in some properties. Maybe we need to buy a condo. And where people are starting to wonder, like they're looking at all this appreciation that we've seen over the last year, and they're thinking, okay, well, if this continues, that's where we should put our money. Yeah. Again, I don't know. So a lot of times people usually, so in a down market and a neutral market, normal market, buyers start to scrutinize cash flow of these condos and make decisions on investing based on cash flow. And it's really a balanced market because, sometimes these things are not that great with cash flow. And so there's the appreciation, the cash flow buyer doesn't buy unless it cash flows. And that's usually what we see in a normal market. But in a hot market, you have people that are willing to sacrifice cash flow for potential appreciation. Yeah. And I think what we're seeing is a wave of buyers that are ignoring the cash flow and just buying for future appreciation. And I think that that's also influencing these numbers, Abe.
Yeah, no question, Greg. Condos, Oceanfront, let's look at that real quick. Because that's starting to get a little bit of movement there. 563 pending out of 1152, which is the strongest. I mean, obviously the strongest number that we've ever seen, with the exception of the real estate bubble. Back then when condos were just selling like hotcakes. But again, so we're starting to see a little bit of movement on the oceanfront. Not enough inventory hitting the market like we typically see, and that's why those numbers are so high.
Yeah. And
then last but not least is the land. Kind of fluctuating around that 24%. I think 2 weeks ago it was right at 24.49. So that's kind of leveled off a little bit. It's still extremely high number relative to what we see land, but it's kind of leveled off a little bit. We're not seeing that increase every single week like we're seeing with homes and condos.
Yeah. And a lot of people are afraid of how hard it is to find a builder right now. Like we've got builders that we recommend, and I call them up and say, hey, can you take on a client? And they're like, well, it's going to be 4 months before I can really start anything. And then it's X amount of, months to get your permits and your, get set up. And, there's a lot more to building, than a lot of people realize. And I think that's why that one particular segment of our market is lagging. It's really hard to even find a builder right now. So, yeah. I mean, but overall, the numbers that you're sharing are phenomenal. And, for those of you that watch us, week after week, first of all, we appreciate it, but also just would love for, to get to know you, to talk to you and help you out in any way. So if you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out to Abe or I. Those are our direct cell numbers that he just posted on the image there. And, so Abe, thank you again for everything that you brought to the table today. And for those of you, please call us, text us, email us if we can ever do anything for you.
Yeah, Greg, my pleasure. Let's go sell some homes.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.